Hit like and subscribe. You're watching the Mark Lamont Hill official YouTube channel.
Greetings, family. Good morning. Happy Saturday morning. I am so happy to be with you. Guess who is here with you today and who's going to be with you every Saturday live at 11 starting today? Yes, it's me, April R. Silver. Now, I know some of you are like, yo, you didn't even say nothing. Like, that's how you kicking off 2025? And other people are going to be like, who the hell are you? So we'll get into all of that. But I will say this at the invitation of my brother, my friend Mark, the invitation to do a program on Mark Lamont Hill Official that came late last month. And I was like, yo, say less. I'm here. There's so much to talk about. So, what we have, thanks to my brother, we have Ascending with April R. Silver, which is going to be on the Mark Lamont Hill official YouTube channel and Twitter or X every Saturday, weekly, live at 11 a.m. So I am honored. I'm honored to be here. So let's kick off. But I wanted to say that first. But before we get into our guests and what we're going to be talking about, I want to remind everybody, you know the drill, like definitely like, subscribe, support this channel. This is independent truth telling, and we need your support. So I know there's a lot of supporters out there, but anybody who's new, make sure you hit that like button, make sure you subscribe, make sure you tell your people, tell everybody, because we doing this, and Mark has a regular hefty program every day of the week, and this is the latest edition. So, on that note, I want to jump right in because we only have a good, solid 30 minutes, and I want to kick off this inaugural broadcast and bring on a brother who I love and I've known for a couple of decades now, an activist, attorney, an all around good human being, a good man, and a fierce, fierce warrior. I want to bring on Donald M. Temple because we have a lot of things to talk about. Y'all see, if y'all know me just a little bit, you know I'm always repping my alma mater, Howard University. And I love Howard University and HBCUs and Black institutions. Like, I love it. It's what I do for the past 30 something years at my agency, right? However, in this particular topic that we'll have today, we got a little bit of to talk about with regard to Howard University. So let's bring on Donald M. Temple to talk about this lawsuit that is in effect right now that is happening at Howard University. And we're going to give some history and context, but for all that's good about Howard, we have some things that we really need to be critical about. So Donald M. Temple, so good to see you again out here on the battleground. Thank you, thank you. Can you hear me well?
I can. Good morning, April. It's an honor to be here with you this morning.
Yes,
And in the truest word, meaning of the word honor.
yes, no, I love it. And it's your brother, Mark Lamont Hill, who is frat brother to you as well. And also y'all have a connection to North Philly. So before we get into the meat, can you kind of like talk about this North Philly connection that you and Mark have that he don't even know about until like right now?
I'm going to be brief, but people talk about North Philly, and you hear about people like the coach of South Carolina and Rasheed Wallace and others that are from North Philly, Teddy Pendergrass. But North Philadelphia has a lot of history, and one of the significant points of that history is an understated lawyer by the name of Cecil B. Moore. Cecil B. Moore was called during the 1960s the Lion of North Philly. And on Mark went to Temple University. For people who've attended Temple, Temple is located on Cecil B. Moore Avenue, but people don't know so much about that. But Cecil was ferocious. He was the nemesis of a guy named Frank Rizzo, be the police commissioner and the mayor of Philly. And Cecil had so much heart, you couldn't even measure it. I was honored along with my late brother, Joey Temple, aka Batman, in North Philly, and we were honored and actually tasked with changing Columbia Avenue to Cecil B. Moore Avenue. And so I am honored that as Mark has some association with Howard, as Sonia Sanchez, I mean, with Temple, as does Sonia Sanchez, and so many others, that when they walk in that and they stop at that Broad and Cecil B. Moore Avenue subway stop, they should think about the late Cecil B. Moore, and that's my connection.
Thank you. I appreciate it. The world just gets smaller and smaller, right?
As
Yeah. So let's jump into our origin story, you and I. We're going to go narrow, then we're going to go broad to talk about this lawsuit and why people should give a damn, whether you went to Howard or not, or HBC or college for that matter. But you and I our connection started when I was a student at Howard, and I was a co leader of the takeover of the administration building on the main campus in 1989. My mentor, your friend and our beloved Sonia Sanchez, who I was connected to through her son, who was a student there as well, put us in contact with you because she knew we needed legal guidance and support. Because when you take over an administration building and you shut down the university for 3 days, and SWAT team comes out and it makes international news, you might need a little bit of legal help. And so that's how you and I met in 1989 because of Sonia Sanchez. So I wanted to put that into perspective, because that legal fight that you fought on behalf of the protesting students at Howard actually kind of began like you consistently fighting on behalf of Black students at this HBCU. Can you give us a little bit of history and context on that?
Yeah, just briefly. I mean, I think, when we talk about Howard to the listeners, we're not really talking about Howard alone. We're talking about the whole movement to educate people coming out of an enslaved history, where laws were on the books like compulsory ignorance laws and the like. So in the 1800s, there were the creation of these institutions. They had a particular purpose. Howard happens to be iconic in that sense because of the way that it was created in its 1867 congressional charter. But it doesn't stop there. It's Florida A&M, it's Lincoln, it's Cheney, it's North Carolina A&T. Any school that's really trying to educate our young people, as Charles Hamilton Houston and Thurgood Marshall realized in the 1950s and 40s, is critical to our evolution, as this to our ascension, to our empowerment. Well, in 1989, that particular student movement was it followed. I mean, the history at Howard was tremendous, and it didn't start even in this century or last century. It started early in the last century, 1923, 24, 25. But there's always been a sense of us wanting more for our people, more to serve, more to be able to build on our knowledge. And when I got that, it was unusual because I was not expecting it, and it was a major student takeover. But what you said is true. When students are involved in these particular student movements, the legal issues are critical. And in those three protests, including at UDC in 1990 that followed the 89 protests, it was critical that the students would be protected not only from the police, but also from the universities in terms of retaliations, suspensions, expulsions. And so that was episodic to be there and to see hundreds of students who were dedicated to improving the quality of education, the affordability of education, and the accountability of the administration.
That's important. And there's a lot of work that's been done around Black student activism and student activism, and we're talking January 2025, where we are right now, and students are going back to classes, or they have already gone back to classes. So I want to, but I'm jumping around just a little bit. For you, who was an activist student yourself at Howard, right? Starting Ubiquity, on campus, which is still thriving. You've seen student activism across generations. And in the past year and beyond, we've had a very bold uptick of student activism all around key principles, right? So this is jumping around just a little bit, but because you've been at the forefront of defending the rights and the positions of students Can you give us some insight at like what you've seen that is different? I know social media has made a difference, but just weigh in on that if you would, please.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very interesting question because it borders on, to a large extent, on how we think, and then also to the heart of the matter of what is being taught in these various universities, including Howard. I mean, one would think that given our incredible history of struggle and accomplishments and achievements and success, incredible thinking, whether it goes back to Frederick Douglass, Harry Tubman, Ida B. Wells, coming into this century, Du Bois, Garvey, Panthers, Booker T, Nation of Islam, and more, that these are critical components of our history. And so that's foundational. But then layered on top of that is the need for our students to be competitive in technology, in the sciences, in business, et cetera. And so what I do see is that we have to put a finger on this whole notion of what assimilation and integration has done to our community. The yous and the me's and so many before us. Our parents and grandparents didn't have the benefit of largely of education, with few exceptions, and that those exceptions are largely at HBCUs. But our kids today have to really struggle with how they're thinking. They're informed by social media, largely middle class values, which are assimilative in nature. So we have to fight, and I think there are students, many students, that are trying to grasp and to preserve that history. And it's that history that will inform the progression of our community when these young people graduate, and what they do with the accomplishments that they have to build upon them, so that it's not about you, me, or it's about the future generations. We're looking at the 22nd century. And what's happening now in 2025 is not just about 2025. These people are thinking about 2050. They're thinking about 2060. So our compass has to be consistent with that. That means that these young people have to make sure that they're asking hard questions, and that they're holding people accountable, and that they're holding themselves accountable. It's a priceless opportunity. And if we rewind history and we go back 100 years and we look at where we are, it's major that we take advantage of whatever those opportunities and privileges are that we have, not only in terms of education, but in terms of service, activism, and making sure that we're giving something back to preserve the gains that we have made over the decades and the centuries.
Yeah, I think you bring up a great point, and it leads me to reference the book that was done by Dr. Josh Myers, who's at Howard. He did a very thorough, uh, a premium piece of work on the Howard University protest. We're going to put the link in the chat. The Howard University protest from 1989, and he illuminates for us that this Black activism body of work did not start in the 60s, did not start in the 70s, but to your point, decades and decades and decades before, students have been at the forefront of holding the universities accountable. So we've gone broad, we've gone very, very broad, and we've rolled back prior to the 60s, right? And put some references. So let's fast forward to 2021. And this lawsuit that I would like you to bring the audience up to speed. I want you to tell why alumni, including myself, I'm a plaintiff in this lawsuit, and the reward is not monetary, but we stand on principle. Why? Number one, what is the lawsuit about? And why should anybody give a damn, especially those who did not go to this HBCU?
Let me start by saying that um, we have to cherish education. Education is not the end all be all. You don't need to necessarily have a college degree, that PhD, whatever, but education in a foundational way. And Howard University, one of the things about Howard, and I mean, the history is there, these 3 student protests, that I was involved in. There was student protests in 1968, but it goes back to 2023, 24, 25. There's a consistent thread there. And one of the struggles in all those protests over 100 years has been fighting the administration, trying to hold the administration accountable to what students feel are the needs, whether they're housing, whether it's the curriculum, et cetera, whether it's communication and the like.
And ideology as well.
And certainly ideology. And ideology is kind of a thing where we want our students to always think. We don't want to say, hey, here's the box. We want to say, hey, give us your best minds. You know, you're bright, debate. We disagree, good, no problem. Well, this particular, in 2015, there started to be a movement. The alumni fought in 1923, 24, 25 to have alumni on the board of trustees elected, not handpicked by the administration. That was successful, so much so that even the House of Representatives and the Senate, they communicated on that in 26. We're on the board. We're elected. We have this process going on. In 1970, after the 68 protests, students and faculty are elected to the board. After struggle, protest, accountability, elected, not handpicked. That gave us a richly diverse board to look at this lens of the future of the university. 2015, though, with some of the changes in the economics of the university, there was a push to remove us. That fight continued. We challenged it. But in 2020, during COVID, the university decided that they wanted to remove alumni, faculty, and students, which meant changing their bylaws. They did so. And they did so in a way that violated their bylaws. So we raised hell about it, obviously, alumni in particular. And I mean, I'm a 50-year alum this year. So we go back 30 years with alumni saying, this is wrong. The university says, hey, tough. We say, no, it's not tough. You don't educate us, violate the bylaws, and then just dismiss us. So we filed a lawsuit painstakingly. Nobody wants to sue Howard. We love Howard. We sue them. We file in state court. They bring it to federal court. We lose in the trial court, saying it should go back to state court. And the court dismissed our case. We continued to fight with very little resources, April, mind you. And in December, without the benefit of all the big law firm that Howard retained and all the money that they invested, the alumni were able to win at the Federal Court of Appeals to reverse the lower court to say exactly what we said when we argued in the beginning. And the court issued a decision reversing the federal trial court's rulings, sending the case back to DC, where we're now going to be engaged in that struggle to say you cannot violate your bylaws and then tell us go to hell. It's not going down like that. Okay.
Right. And the central issue, if we had to put it in a simple phrase, is shared governance, right? That's one of the things that we're bringing to the forefront as plaintiffs, as students. Like you have a responsibility to the students, to the faculty, to the alumni, because this concept of shared governance is principled. It's been at the university for decades. And then the question becomes, why don't you want us in the room when Howard starts making decisions and partnering with strange bedfellows like that? That's part of the thing.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the shared governance was the predicate in 1924, 23, 24, 25. Not only shared governance, but a cultural sensitivity, because up to that point, Howard had white presidents. It was the movement in 25 and 26 that resulted in Howard getting his first Black president, Mordecai Johnson. Yes. So the notion of us being able to sit in a room and talk about the future of the university, and not just a bunch of people who just care about the financial aspect, which is critical, but also the constitution of the university. What is it made of? What did the students think? What did the faculty think? What did the alumni think? And when you divide that, when you have a house that's divided, which we have now, it makes it difficult. And so they're going to be the continued trajectory. But in terms of the value of the debate, the value of the discussion, the integrity of the discussion, when you have elected stakeholders on the board, it's critical because people are not going to always agree. And that's a beautiful thing. And it's a critical thing for our community.
And to your point about the fighting and the pushback and holding the university accountable, for context, for those who don't know, when we took over the administration building in 1989, one of, not the only, but one of the primary core things was to kick Lee Atwater off the board of trustees. Lee Atwater was a sitting member and a decision maker on the board of trustees at Howard University, and we were like, oh hell no. And when I say we, it was all of the students at Howard, led by Black Neoforce and the student government. It was a phenomenal long rippling effect. There are graduate studies programs, and I think it was the African American Studies program at Georgia State University. Like the rippling effect of what we did, right? It just was national and international in their long lasting effects when students decide that their voices matter, and you live an activist life, right? And we were successful. Lee Atwater was kicked off the board, and a lot of other things that we fought for. Not everything, but a lot. But that was the main thing, to get this racist man off the board. So here we are, still trying to hold the university accountable. Like, you can't work in the dark. It's not right. It's not fair. It's not just.
And that's so critical. And what's more critical is that, as you talk about other people, all of our institutions, April, every single one of them, every place where people are being educated in pre-K through elementary, through high school, through college is critical, because the absence of this knowledge, the absence of a value construct, takes us to the place where we want to move from. You know, if you look at the illiteracy rate, whether it's in terms of reading, whether it's on technology, the implications of that with our young boys and young girls, and then what's happening is the system will eat them alive, and particularly the transformed system that we're seeing coming into play doesn't value the humanity of our experience, of our history. And the reason why education becomes even more paramount is because we're moving into a stage where we have to become more self-sufficient, more self-determinative, as Hakeem Abuti would say, more collective. We can't do these things individually. There's a lot of people suffering, a lot of women, a lot of young single mothers suffering. The conditions are bad, so we can't pride ourselves. Thank God that we have lawyers and incredible minds, doctors and engineers and MBAs and people who are making money. But that is not the yardstick for what we need to do as we move into the next 50, 100 years, with the well of technological changes and innovation that are challenging the market as we know it. And so we have to rethink what we're doing, and Howard and in this particular struggle is critical.
And I would agree. I would agree. I'm a proud plaintiff for sure, right? As we close out, as we get to the end of this conversation, let's make it even broader, right? Because I know, particularly on Mark Lamont Hill Official, there's a lot of scholarship, right? A lot of the epitome of Black thought and progressive thought and radical thought, a lot of those in that realm. But we also have people who may never go to college or a university. What is it about this struggle in this space, be it a HBCU or not, that makes this a universal call to action? And to come back is really, why would anybody outside of the academy give a damn about this? What are the larger cues that people should walk away with, would you say?
I would start with, I think that people should view, it's a video, it's called The Road to Brown. It's not just the road to Brown, but it's what the education climate was as viewed by Charles Hamilton Houston leading to Brown. And when we look back, and it's hard to look in that rearview mirror in a context and see the level of deprivation and what it meant to be uneducated, period,
Right.
or not have the opportunity to emerge into an economic space, a competitive economic space, to And not only that, in terms of your values, how you look at the world. Other communities have a way of looking at the world that preserves their status, and we should understand that's very clear. And we look at other cultures, but for
Mhm.
us, the education struggle is just one finger on this hand that we're
Mhm.
looking at in the university space. So it's important. Um, the education gives us also a framework for cultural social compass. You can be educated, and it's been said, education alone is not it, because you can become the enemy. I think it was Carter G. Woodson who talked about the miseducation of the Negro. And
Mhm.
so that's critical. But I would just say this at this point in time in our history, when we look at what's happening, uh, caste system, when we look at what's happening in terms of removing our books, the structural issues regarding education, there is probably, in terms of a call to action, it's got to be some notion of preserving and advocating and preserving our history. That is, it's got to be a sense of what values mean, old, hardworking values in terms of the discipline that people had when they couldn't go to college. We look at in the Birmingham boycott and the Montgomery boycott, excuse me, people were disciplined. It wasn't just about the money. We have to begin to think about that in terms of the knowledge and acquiring knowledge. Knowledge governs ignorance. Simple as that. Okay, it's not.
Say that again.
You want to be dumbed down and do dumb things, and understand, if the house is on fire and you're over here dancing in the street and talking stuff with your pants down and shooting each other, that's not going to get it. It's
Well,
us, April, that are going to command that structural change to meet the demands and the challenges that we face.
yeah, and we know that our activism and our intelligence comes in different clothing, different styles. You know what I mean? So but I hear the essence of what you're saying, right? I hear the essence of what you're saying, and I think the key thing is that if I heard you right, knowledge governs ignorance or trumps ignorance. Uh, and yeah, I hate that I'm using the word Trump, but I get the essence of what you're saying for sure. I just wanted to make sure that people walk away knowing that we're talking about a subset in our community, but there's some universal values and principles here that we need to uphold for sure, and what the lessons can be. Now we're coming in it's the final 3 minutes, of this. I want to make sure you get the final word, but I also want to put in the chat where people can get more information, because to your point, the decision was reversed, but we're not finished fighting and on
We're
this
not
particular
right.
item, right?
And we
Mhm.
need help, people. We need help. I mean, I'm a one-man band in that regard, with a broken drumstick. Okay, but we have fought and we have prevailed in this appellate decision, which is monumental. We're in the next court under the Supreme Court on that. And if people want to support it financially, if they would like to read and connect, please do. I mean, we
Yeah,
need those resources, to continue in this struggle,
yeah.
to make sure that we get the end. And when we have the end, it's the same as your domino. It's going to affect other schools. Other schools are looking at what's happening.
What tell me what was it, Harvard or Yale? They had the same fight as well. And
These fights are happening in schools across the country. And
yeah,
again, we're looking at Howard. I mean, what's boss about the situation is that we are one of the few schools that won, at least in this. We haven't won the substantive battle. We
right.
won the process fight. That's a 3-year fight. We've
Yeah,
been fighting for 3 years.
yeah, yeah. It's nationwide. It's nationwide. This is not an isolated conversation in the academy at all. And I see people are like, what can we do? So I know we're going to put in the chat, if it's not already there, the website, the web page.
They should
On,
read the decision that you're going to put there. They should read that
yes,
decision. It's very
yes.
interesting.
It's coming up within minutes, actually.
Yeah.
Read the decision, get educated and informed so that when we're out in the world representing, then we know what the facts are of the matter. And we need people's currency. We need the people's intelligence, their time, their dollars, and in a variety of ways, we need people's currencies right, and to spread the word. So Donald, I don't know how we got to 11:30. But I knew that I wanted you to be the first guest because there's some specific things here and some broader things. So I thank you for your intelligence, for your sacrifice, of which we just don't know, and your time and your consistency. You are a fierce warrior. I love you. You know that, but I'm saying it out loud on Mark Lamont Hill Official. Thank you for being the first guest. And
Honored, April. Thank you.
thank
Seriously,
you.
I appreciate it
Yes.
immensely.
So what we want to say to the audience, every Saturday, 11 a.m., I'll be here, ascending with April R. Silver. I won't always wear my Howard stuff. I don't know. There's some people out there I want to do that for, but for real, honestly, we're gonna close out, and we just thank you for your time. Be sure to like and subscribe, Mark Lamont Hill Official. Support this channel. Support Black media, independent media, and I'm signing off. We're good to go. Saturdays at 11 a.m. Ascending with April R. Silver. My best to you always. Stay up.